The obvious one, Victor Wembanyama, a guy we've known for a year now is going to be the number one pick in this year's draft, and now we know it's going to be San Antonio. I talked about during the lottery, and there was these comparisons between him and LeBron James in terms of being hyped up prospects, and I said I thought LeBron was the better prospect just given what he accomplished in high school, and we figured, oh, he's the obvious number one pick, and obviously your Cavs were able to get him, but for Wembanyama, I think he's the more fascinating pick, maybe the most fascinating pick that we've seen in this year's draft, because again, I think we were talking about with Nikola Jokic, I don't know if we really had that much of a comp to him. What's sort of your thoughts on Wembanyama, and do you think he will end up being the best player in this year's draft and help San Antonio get back to where they once were with Tim Duncan?
Yes, 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 and yes. Listen, this is the Wemby draft, right? This is, you and I have done 2 draft shows together, and they were both phenomenal, and I can't wait for this one. This one's going to be great as well.
Absolutely.
But this is the Wemby draft. Everything around this draft is revolving around Victor Wembanyama. It's not as deep as drafts years prior. I don't think that the talent in this year's draft is as good as it was last year, but the top tier guy may be the most top tier guy we've ever seen. I mean, he's very clearly, and I'm very new at this. I've only been scouting drafts for about 6 years. So my first draft was 2017, where Lonzo Ball was my number 1 overall player. But he's the best prospect I've ever evaluated, and it's not close. It's not close. He is. I don't know that there's a hole to his game. He's a little like Chet Holmgren was last year, where the complaint was he's 7 foot and he's 195 pounds. This time, I mean, Wemby's probably 220 or 230. I'd have to look at his scouting report again, but he's 7'4", and his arms reach the length. He can probably touch both walls of the gym with his right. length. The guy shoots 35-foot 3-pointers off one leg. I mean, I don't know what more you want. I mean, he's just such a ridiculous prospect. I don't know if I'd put him ahead of LeBron just because of all the hype that LeBron got for years prior that he was draft eligible. I mean, when he was a freshman in high school, people were talking about him and talking about this dude's going to be better than Michael Jordan. I don't think Wembanyama is of that tier, but he very well could be the best prospect since. So, I mean, San Antonio, and could you dream of a more perfect scenario where David Robinson and Tim Duncan, and he's going in that spot? I mean, that's such a great spot for him to go. I'm so, when they got the number 1 pick, I was so excited, because it's just like sports, and this too, and I love this, and this is why I'm excited to get my podcast back, one of these days soon. Sports is kind of about telling stories. That's what we love about this stuff. What an amazing story it is for Wembanyama, who, I mean, and it hasn't happened yet, but yes, it has, right? Wembanyama is going to go to the San Antonio Spurs, and what shoes he has to fill. It's just incredible.
And you mentioned the fact that they've had 2 great bigs, 2 all-time greats, and David Robinson and Tim Duncan. I also look at the fact that it's almost poetic justice in that the Spurs for years have been the best international scouts. Isn't it kind of almost, it seems meant to be just all those years of hard labor finding guys like Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker, and now they get the most obvious, great number 1 overall pick, especially coming from overseas in France. It's just kind of weird how that kind of came together. And then this question too about Wemby, because this was also in the discussion, that what is I talked about this too. What is the proper expectation for Wemby? And it's hard to do this because he's not taking his first NBA dribble yet.
Yeah.
But what are the proper expectations in terms of where he's going to be when he, 15, 20 years from now, who knows, retires? Is it Mount Rushmore guy? Is it, I said top 15 player ever. What would you consider a successful career where Victor Wembanyama lives up to all the hype we've got surrounding him?
Well, I think to live up to the hype, I think he's got to be around top 10, top 15. He needs to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. But you're right. It is really tough to put it on a kid. As far as his play style is concerned and what he draws comparison to, I always have a rule for myself when I evaluate prospects that I never try to combine 2 players, right? Like I never do this where this guy reminds me of if this guy and this guy were one player, right? I never do that. Because that doesn't exist, right? So if somebody reminds me of Jay Crowder, he reminds me of Jay Crowder. Wemby's the guy I broke the rule for. I'll spoil my comparison for him. I won't wait for the draft show. I'll spoil my comparison for him. He is as if Kevin Durant and Rudy Gobert were one player. Like, it is just,
Wow.
that's the kind of guy you're getting. The size and the defensive upside that you would get from Rudy Gobert, and the offensive upside with the length and shooting ability, ball handling that Kevin Durant gives you now. That's what you get out of this guy. So, like I said, this is going to be a very exciting draft for me, just because I know the talent isn't as deep as it was last year, or maybe even the year before that. But this is maybe the best player that we've ever seen coming out of the draft, and that includes LeBron James. I don't know.
Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. Be sure to click that big red subscribe button and go check out the other clips and full shows of Carving It Up Live. Have a blessed day.